check your needles. This is a crucial part of your tattooing process. You need to check every single needle before you start tattooing. The quality of needles has improved massively over the years, but needles are still mass produced. So human error still occurs and there can still be little sort of faults or indiscrepancies in your needles. So it's important that you check them thoroughly before you start tattooing your client. All you need is a little jeweler's eyelet. Now these are super cheap. You can get them off Amazon, eBay, tattoo supply websites. They're literally like a few quid or dollars. And all you need to do is, if you're using a cartridge, you just kind of push up on your cartridge just to expose your needle, basically. Or if you're using a needle on a bar, you don't really need to do anything because we're checking this little bit here. So I usually hold my needle up to the light. Sometimes it's good to use, like a little bit of kitchen towel or a white bit of paper, or up against your white wall if you can. I just find using it against a lighter surface makes any little faults easier to find. So I just kind of hold it up to the light, I get my eyelet, and you just kind of zoom in until you've got that magnified needle and you can see it nice and clearly. So you just need to check all around the sort of the sides of your needle and also from above. Now, what we're looking for are a few different kind of faults. So the needle could be barbed, so it could be one or more of your individual needles. Now, if a needle is barbed, it's where the end of the needle or the tip of the needle is a little bit kind of bent. You'll be able to see this straight away. If your needle is barbed, this can cause massive trauma to the skin that isn't always visible to the naked eye, but it is there. So you kind of have to imagine something dragging through your skin at the wrong angle, basically. So you've got all your needles that, they're nice and parallel, they're all straight together, but then you've got this one little needle that's slightly bent at the end, which will be going against the grain as you're pulling along your tattoo. So it will be dragging and pulling along that skin, and it will cause more trauma. It could make the skin bleed more. You could even scar the skin if it's barbed that bad, and you'll cause your client extra pain as well. And like I say, it's not always visible to the naked eye while you're tattooing, and it's definitely not visible on your needle to the naked eye, which is why you need a little magnifying eyelet to be able to see all these potential faults. It's also something to bear in mind if you're tattooing, and you're hitting any kind of troubleshooting, to check your needle again. So faults can obviously happen to your needle during the tattoo process as well. So if you're finding, your client's bleeding a little bit more, or they're finding it a bit painful and they really, really shouldn't, or you're just struggling to get the ink in, just always check your needle again to see if any of these little faults have happened. Another one is a blunt needle. So again, this could be one or more of your individual needles within your grouping. And it's basically where the tapers of your needle aren't super, super sharp anymore. They'll be a little bit blunt at the end. And again, this can cause more trauma because the needle isn't penetrating into the skin as well as what it could be, basically. So again, poor ink flow, poor retention. It could even be bleeding a little bit more. Everything might be a little bit more red. So it's important that you check none of the needles are blunt as well. And also any kind of inconsistencies within that needle. So for a liner, for example, it could be, you've got all your little individual needles that are all together. One could just be like a little bit higher than the others. So if this is the case, you've got one little needle that is going into the skin at a deeper level than the rest of your needles within that grouping, which again is causing more trauma, potentially scarring the skin more. It could be making the skin bleed more. And will affect your overall healed results as well because you're trauma in that skin more. That can also happen on a mag. So obviously with your magnums, everything should kind of be flush at the end. So just check that they're all in line with each other basically, and no needles are sticking out longer than what they should be. And you also need to check that all your needles within that grouping are parallel to each other. So on a liner and on a magnum as well, say a magnum for example, you've got all your needles, they should all be in a row. If you've got one that's kind of tapering off a little bit and isn't all parallel, and even on a liner, again, you've got a needle that isn't hitting the skin at the same angle and level as all the other needles. It'll be dragging along at a different angle as you're trying to tattoo. So you're causing, again, trauma, scarring, just more damage. And you could find as you're tattooing, the ink isn't going in as well, or the skin's getting really, really angry because of it. And healed results will just come back shit as well. So it's important to check all these things.